When the sheriff rides up your dusty ranch road at sunset, you know two things: trouble's close, and it's got your name written all over it. That's exactly what Elias Carter, a rugged rancher with a lifetime of hard work carved into his face, thought as he spotted the sheriff's silhouette on the horizon. His cattle had just been driven back into the corral, his boots were coated in dirt, and the long day was nearly over. But trouble doesn't wait for a man to rest. Sheriff Matthew Cole was the kind of lawman who didn't waste words. He rode straight up to the wooden gate, his horse breathing heavy from the long ride, and fixed Elias with a stare sharp enough to cut through barbed wire. "Evenin', Carter," the sheriff said, tipping his hat just enough to be polite. "Evenin', Sheriff," Elias replied, his voice flat. "I reckon you're not here to swap stories." The sheriff's tone carried weight. "There've been reports of stolen cattle moving through this valley. Seems like every trail leads awful close to your land." Elias wiped the sweat off his brow with the back of his sleeve. "You think I'd run stolen cattle on the same soil I was born on? You think I'd risk my ranch for thieves?" Sheriff Cole dismounted, dust rising as his boots hit the ground. "I'm thinking folks in town are token, and talk spreads faster than wildfire. If I don't get answers soon, those whispers are gonna turn into rope and pitchforks." The tension between them felt like a rattlesnake coiled in dry grass. Elias wasn't a man who bent easily. He'd fought droughts, wolves, and wildfires. But a sheriff's suspicion, that cut deep. "Cole," Elias growled, "you know me. I've spent 30 years on this land. Every fence post, every head of cattle, every scar on my back. I earned it. You're telling me all that counts for nothing?" Sheriff Cole didn't blink. "All it takes is one mistake, or one bad friend riding through your land." And that's when Elias remembered something. 3 nights ago, he'd heard horses on the North Ridge, riders moving fast under cover of dark. He thought it was just drifters passing through. Could it be rustlers? Could they be using his ranch as a shortcut to hide their tracks? "Fine," Elias said, pulling on his gloves. "If you think rustlers been using my land, then you and me are gonna ride it together, tonight." The sheriff hesitated. He wasn't used to working side by side with a man he suspected, but Elias's tone left no room for argument. Within minutes, the two men saddled up and rode out into the darkening hills. The moon hung low, casting silver light over the scrub and sagebrush. Coyotes howled in the distance. Every creak of saddle leather, every snap of a twig, echoed like a warning. They rode in silence for a while, until Elias spoke. "You know, Kola looks mighty different from behind a badge. Out here, it's just survival. You can't always follow rules written in some courthouse." The sheriff replied coldly. "Law's the only thing that separates us from chaos. You think I wear this badge for pride? No, I wear it so good men don't get mistaken for bad ones." Suddenly, the horses froze. Ahead, faint campfire light flickered between the rocks. The sound of low voices carried on the wind. Rustlers, Elias, and the sheriff tied off their horses and crept closer. There, huddled around the fire, were 4 men with bandanas, their saddlebags heavy with stolen branding irons and gear. And behind them, penned between rough makeshift fences, were cattle marked with brands that didn't belong to Carter or anyone nearby. The sheriff whispered, "Looks like I was right." Elias shot him a glare. "No, looks like I was wrong. I should have chased M off when I first heard M." The sheriff reached for his revolver, but Elias grabbed his arm. "We can't take M headin'. 4 of them, 2 of us." The rancher's mind raced. He'd fought rustlers before. They were quick, ruthless, and desperate. If they saw lawmen, they'd shoot first and talk later. So Elias did something unexpected. He stepped out from the shadows, voice booming like thunder. "Hey, you boys are on my land." The rustlers froze, hands twitching near their guns. The sheriff stepped out a moment later, badge glinting in the firelight. "And you're under arrest." The standoff felt endless. Then one rustler panicked, pulling his pistol. A single shot rang out, echoing across the valley. Chaos erupted. Gunfire cracked through the night. Elias dove behind a rock, firing back with steady aim. The sheriff moved with military precision, his revolver barking flames. The rustlers scrambled, but they hadn't counted on 2 men who fought like cornered wolves. One outlaw went down clutching his leg, another dropped his gun when Elias's bullet shattered the ground at his feet. The last 2 mounted their horses, fleeing into the night. When the dust cleared, the sheriff stood over the wounded rustler, gun still smoking. Elias, chest heaving, lowered his rifle. "You see now," Elias muttered, "this ranch ain't harboring thieves. It's hunting M." The sheriff holstered his weapon, eyes softening for the first time. "Maybe I judged too quick." By sunrise, the rustler was locked up in the sheriff's jail, and word spread fast through town. The Carter ranch wasn't guilty. It was the reason the stolen herds were finally stopped. The sheriff rode back to Elias's ranch later that day. As the cattle grazed peacefully in the morning light, Cole tipped his hat. "Carter, I owe you an apology. And maybe the town owes you their thanks." Elias gave a rare smile. "Don't thank me, Sheriff. Thank the land. She don't let liars hide for long." And with that, the 2 men, lawman and rancher, rode side by side, not as enemies, but as allies who finally understood each other. In the West, trust isn't given, it's earned. And sometimes, it takes a gunfight under the stars to prove it.